Hello and welcome. My name's Richard, and you're listening to
Hurry! The movie is starting podcast!
Welcome. Today I'm going to be pre-gaming the movie Black Phone 2, but before I do that, if you haven't checked out the latest episode, go ahead and give that a listen to, because I was speaking about the movie Vindication Swim with the director Elliot Hassler, and the movie was actually released today. So if you haven't watched that episode, go ahead and give that to a listen. I think that was a great episode, a great interview to be able to pick the mind of one of the great young directors of our generation, Mr. Elliot Hassler. Just fantastic insight on his filmmaking process and just the overall process for the movie Vindication Swim. That was the latest episode. But this episode, let's get to this episode. This episode is sponsored by BetterThanBeforeBrand.com. You may be asking, well, what is that? Well, it's ran by the Arwines, and the Arwines are here to guide young Christian adults in their 20s and 30s to achieve their fitness goals in just 6 months. That's half a year to get your dream bod. That's not too shabby, if you know what I mean. So what do you get? You get organization, custom workout plans, and custom nutrition plans written personally by Asher and Michelle after your onboarding call. You get accountability. Asher and Michelle will be able to see your every workout you complete, every habit you complete, and the food you get to eat. You get connection. You get access to talk to them 24/7 inside the private app. Great for those moments of weakness that we all have when we feel alone. I mean, you know what you're feeling late at night when you're by yourself and you're like, should I eat that Snickers bar? Well, I mean, now you can talk about it a little bit for the connection. You get daily plans, daily habits set to achieve your goals. You get a community, private community to connect with everyone else in the Better Than Before group. You get tracking. The app is synced to MyFitnessPal, so you can be held accountable to your calories. Again, watch out for those late night meals, if you know what I'm saying. And then progression, tab that will log your weight, progression photos. I mean, we all love those. Who doesn't love a good progression photo? And body fat percentage. Asher's goal is to help young adults build the physique of their dreams while building a faithful foundation, which to me is very important. I mean, our bodies are temples, so what better way to learn weight loss and fitness goals than to remind yourself what it's truly about? If you'd like to apply today or find out more information, check out the link in the description of this episode or visit BetterThanBeforeBrand.com. Now let's get into this episode. So today I'm going to be pre-gaming the horror movie Black Phone 2. Now, I know what you're thinking, but didn't the grabber die in the first one? Well, first off, spoiler alert, can't just go blurting that out. Second off, he did die, but he has apparently returned to do more grabbing. Okay, wait, that doesn't sound right. Cut that. You know what? Let's just dive into where we left off at the conclusion of the Black Phone, so you can go into this movie more prepared than me on the night before a big test. Yeah, I'm a repeat procrastinator. I have an issue. I'm gonna work on that in the future. You know, I'll work on it in the future. I'm still low-key pushing off studying for my English exam that happened in the 12th grade. Don't tell my teachers. But as mentioned before, Finn kills the grabber at the end of the first movie. The police find the bodies of the kids buried under a secret second location. It's the house right across the street. After these events, Finn and Gwen's abusive father tries to apologize to them for his abuse, lack of parenting, and most importantly, not believing in his kids, especially Gwen, who has the power to dream supernaturally. Well, as we left off in that film, Finn was 13 years old and Gwen was 11 years old. There, now you're all caught up for this movie. So we can dive into the Black Phone 2, rated R, releasing today, October 17th, with a nice runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes. The plot of this movie. As Finn, now 17, struggles with life after his captivity, his sister begins receiving calls in her dreams from the Black Phone and seeing disturbing visions of 3 boys being stalked at a winter camp known as Alpine Lake. Alright, let's unpack that. So clearly, we are going to be seeing the PTSD of being kidnapped, especially at a young age, and the ongoing struggles with life after the escape that Finn is going to have to deal with in his young adolescent age of 17. The first movie featured Finn getting calls from the Black Phone while in his captivity, but now Gwen has signed up to the Black Phone calling plan. and we have 3 new boys being stalked. By whom? Well, as mentioned before, and if you've seen the trailer, the Grabber has returned in what looks like a Freddy Krueger type of supernatural force. But doesn't feel like a blatant ripoff because the first movie dived into Gwen's abilities to see clues for finding her brother and dead boys through her dreams. So yeah, F you, Freddie K. Returning to direct this movie is Scott Derrickson, who you've seen direct Black Phone, of course, VHS 85, Doctor Strange, fantastic movie, Sinister, another great movie, and Exorcism of Emily Rose. So while researching this movie, I discovered some amazing things about Scott Derrickson that I wanted to share with you. Remember in the first movie how Gwen, an 11-year-old kid, would pray to Jesus to help her strengthen her powers and be able to dream to find her brother? Kind of odd to see that in a horror movie that isn't about demons, right? Well, Scott Derrickson is actually a Christian filmmaker that uses Christian motifs in work directly referencing biblical themes of confronting evil, the struggle between good and evil, and the concept of redemption and creation. This was pulled from FilmFreakCentral.net, which was a Scott Derrickson interview with one of his longtime friends, and this quote comes from Scott Derrickson: "When you watch a really scary movie or read a scary story, you know something that really scares you. It's tapping into something you're afraid of that you might not even know what it is. And when it's over, maybe you know yourself a little bit better along the way, and you've released some of that fear." Going a little bit more into his faith, another quote from Scott here: "I went from a kid who was building haunted houses at a young age, those years of fundamentalism with no horror, didn't watch any scary movies at all, didn't participate much in it. Scared is not compatible with that world. And then after I went through my crisis of faith and just brutal period of reconstructing what I really believed to be time about the world, I found I didn't reject some basic things I believed in about God, even about Christianity. Some of those things endured. Most any kind of literal reading of the Bible I rejected. The foundation of it as a book of sometimes very beautiful literature and mythology is incredibly useful to the point of empowering, inspiring even. But so much of what's in the Bible is really dark too, while being still beautiful and wonderful. I mean, let's be honest, and this is coming from me, God sacrificed his own living son to forgive us. How beautifully dark is that? His only son ever to exist, he sacrificed for our sins." Getting back to Scott's quote, and oftentimes the antithesis of what I've been taught in those fundamentalist spaces. So, me as a Christian, I think it's truly amazing that we can have a filmmaker that utilizes his faith in movies, even if the subject matter may be deemed as evil to some. I believe it's a great reflection on the Bible itself, like how Scott mentioned it contains beautiful material, but can be really dark at times too. But God's light shines through. And speaking of shining, let's see the stars of this movie. We have Mason Thames returning back as Finn, which in the first movie he did a fantastic job. That propelled him to then get the lead role of How to Train Your Dragon, so the future is bright for him. Madeleine McGraw returns as Gwen, another solid performance in that first movie. Her and Finn's chemistry in that movie was spectacular, and even some of the deeper, darker stuff she had to go through in that film was just fantastic. Jeremy Davies returns back as Terrence, aka the dad, and Ethan Hawke is back as the Grabber. Rounding out the top of this cast is Ariana Rivas, Miguel Mora, and Demian Bashir. But let's go to what you're thinking. Let's go to
the comment section.
At the real G4587 says, Mason has really grown into a bigger star since the first film. 100%. So for his work on The Black Phone, Mason Thames won the 2023 Fangoria Chainsaw Award. He also won the lead role in the Universal's live adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, and he will then lead a Green Day-inspired comedy feature, New Year's Rev, which is directed by Lee Kirk and produced by Green Day members Billy Joel Armstrong, Mike Dirnt, and Trey Cool. I'm excited to see this journey that's set before him because he clearly has a gift. At Rasim9898, that name sounds familiar. Ethan Hawke and the child actors really took the film to a new level, especially the sister who just exceeded all expectations. At one point, I wasn't even sure if her father was really hitting her, or if it was a performance, because it was the most realistic tears I've ever seen. No, really. Marcus Thames was fantastic, but Madeleine McGraw, even her angry snapback towards her father after him continually trying to force her to not believe she has powers, a fear that he had to overcome after he drove his wife mad, was complete improv by Madeleine McGraw, and it felt so real. Also, as I mentioned before, the chemistry between her and Marcus was phenomenal at such a young age. It's truly impressive to see what these kids are doing nowadays. Next comment comes from @DaveM5725. The sequel that was never expected, but we are here for it. Once the grabber died, you knew that was going to be the end of the story, unless they released a prequel explaining how he came to be. But no, we actually get a continuation how this evil character has become a more sinister version. And after recently seeing Black Phone for the first time, I'm excited to see what we learn from this one, since the first one left me with so many questions. And the last comment comes from @H2O DeLorean. I know many of us compared it to Nightmare on Elm Street after the first trailer, but this really elevates that, especially with the dreams and the people getting thrown around, but then the people who are awake singing No One. It really reminds me of the first death in Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm so hyped for this. See, I'm glad I wasn't the only one thinking this looks like Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's building off what Gwen set up in the first movie, exploring her supernatural dreaming and how it's linked to something more, and perhaps we get a deeper understanding on the grabber and Gwen's abilities as a whole. Beautiful. That brings us to the end of the comment section, and next to
Over Under.
So for the over-under, I was using IMDb before, but to make things a little easier for myself, I'm going to be switching over to Rotten Tomatoes so I can compare the lines to Kalshi. Currently, I'm sitting at a 6.72 record. I had him going over 7.1. Oh boy, was I wrong with that one, as this movie currently sits at a lowly 5.1. I think, honestly, advertising it as Jordan Peele's name under the producer was brilliant, because this film missed the mark completely for me, and it was not that great of a movie, in my opinion. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it yourself and see what you think about it. Kalshi, getting back to this one, Kalshi currently has this film set at a 72 with a 64% chance going on the over, meaning if you bet $10 and this film goes over 72, you will win a total of $15. Now, where the movie sits right now, currently at a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes with 105 reviews. Remember, these are professional critics, so predicting this score can be a little bit more tricky based on what I think the audience can perceive, because I'm not a professional critic, so I can't understand the mindset of a professional critic. And then looking back on Black Phone 1, which currently sits at 81 overall, I think 72 should be easy to hit the over. I mean, sequels sometimes struggle to repeat what originals have cultivated, but Derrickson returning with members of the original cast, that is a recipe for success, in my opinion. Taking into account that this movie dives deeper into the supernatural and possibly more clarity on the grabber character, I'm going with over on the 72 Rotten Tomatoes score, predicting it'll end at a 74. But if you're on Kalshi, I'd sprinkle a little on the over 75. But as always, bet responsibly, as the critics are in control of the line here. So bet responsibly. Please do not try and make this a way of income. This is not a job. This is just for fun. And that's going to be the end of the over-under and bring me to my final thoughts. So as mentioned in my last pregame episode on Good Boy, I want to try and include a Bible verse into my pregames to kind of sum up what the movie is about. And thinking on that same general concept brought me to Acts 2:17. Quotes from the prophet Joel about dreams. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. What a great scripture that sums up dreaming and prophecy and just seeing things in your mind and your heart. That'll bring me to my final thoughts on this movie. Black Phone was an amazing horror movie that not only featured a creepy villain with an ominous motivation, we had spirituality, faith, and supernatural elements woven in. After leaving me with so many questions, I couldn't help but go through multiple YouTube videos trying to find and understand more about the movie. In doing so, it enhanced my appreciation for the film. If a movie can get you going home and trying to figure out more about it, I believe that's a win. And while some people get annoyed by not having the answers, I felt the ambiguity leaves it up to our own dark imaginations, perhaps making it a little more sinister than it can actually be. Or not. The grabber clearly has some underlying issues and is a personification of evil based on his actions and the way we see him throughout the movie, but he is bound to his own human flesh and the rules that apply to that. Those rules are seemingly thrown out the window here as he has escaped death and evolved into something more sinister. He was creepy before, but now he has somehow surpassed that. So I'm excited to check out this one and see the cast return for round 2. I'm excited to see Marcus and Madeleine bro and sister up again, and I'm excited to see the layers that Ethan Hawke adds on to his character, and hopefully we can learn more about the grabber in the process. But that's going to be all for this pregame. Stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be on Begonia by Yorgos Lanthimos, an artistic director that dwells in the surreal, dark comedy, and social commentary through unconventional cinematography. Plus, we get to see bald Emma Stone. So yeah, there's that. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening in. I truly appreciate you. God bless, and have a wonderful day. And don't forget, hurry, the movie is starting.